Hunting tigers out in India. Out in India. Yeah. You all know how beastly tigers are. Out in India.
Welcome to the Auditory Osmosis Studios. This is your host, number one, Nick Ritter. This is episode 16 with my co-host, Mr.
Ether Hawkins. Number two, numero uno and numero dos.
Well, sometimes you're number uno and sometimes I'm numero dos, right?
That's true.
So we're both numero uno point cinco.
So, I don't think I'm going to refrain from being like, Black Lives Matter, all lives matter, and, divide and conquer. We're going to let that rest in that other episode. So if you want to go
heavy.
here, right.
A little too heavy. So we're good with that for a little bit. It's funny how it covered up everything of Hillary, though.
Right, exactly. And I've already seen Hillary be like, all lives matter. We must progress. We must move forward. Yeah. And then she smacks and cracks the whip.
Cool.
She's a dominatrix.
Maybe I should vote for her.
Dominated
Wait,
matrix.
no. Anyway.
Hey, so you like I finally got my face on the little image down there for the Google image. I finally put Ether Hawkins' face.
I did see it. It's from eating all them chips.
No, exactly. That's what you get, folks. If you eat too many chips,
it's pretty sad when you got to cover up that third chin.
Well, I got liposuction a few years ago around the gut area. And, I used to enjoy that extra leverage I would have. I could, I still can, but I could rest things on my stomach and kind of synchronize with my breathing to when I wanted to. For instance, if I had a Slurpee, I could just rest it just right.
It is 7-Eleven. Today is 7-Eleven. And you mentioned the Slurpee. So we'll send out an email for free Slurpees to the first listener that sends us a little chat message.
Exactly, and we have many coupons. I don't know if they may be expired, but you can haggle with clerk.
They're from Texas. I got them shipped in this morning. It's 7-Eleven, man.
And we know Texas coupons, they never expire. Because most people down there, they don't know how to count.
Well, that's not true, but you got to fold them a lot because they're really big.
Was it exaggeration or just simply not true?
What are we talking about?
Texas people. You know what really bothers me? The Pokemon Go.
You know what really grinds my gears?
The Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
I don't understand it.
It's taken over the kitchen too.
What are we doing? What are we to do with our lives? I guess play Pokemon on the go. How does that work, Mr. Ritter? I don't have one of those fancy spy devices.
So it does one thing, which is called AR, augmented reality, which you can turn off. But anyway, so what you do is you see this little character or what do they call it? Avatar. A little avatar that you've set up when you started the Pokemon app or whatever, and then it shows you like walking around in this weird like world. And then every now and then you'll see like some stupid little, I shouldn't say stupid because I don't know, I haven't played it, but I don't want to play it anyway. So you'll see some little cue on the screen to catch a certain Pokemon that's nearby. And what it's designed to do. So if you go to a family establishment, or if you go to to find some of the best Pokemon, you have to go to like the science museum or the library or something like that. So,
but this is the thing: if they want you to go out and about,
exactly,
what if they want you to be paying attention to the place that you're actually visiting? I don't understand. Sure, you can give your kids a Pokemon Go device.
Well, then you hold it up when you find that Pokemon, and it turns on your camera, and you can see reality, but then you see like Pikachu hiding behind a tree.
See, that's what I don't like about this augmented reality approach. Kids, I mean, even adults are playing this Pokemon Go nonsense. I don't understand it.
How deep do you think this actually gets? How do you think this is some government formed um, video game that gets
Well,
everybody?
Pokemon's strange. Did you hear about like when Pokemon first pocket monsters in Japan?
Oh yeah,
They were doing different things with the screen, and it caused simultaneously kids who were watching it over in Japan to have seizures. They were like photogenic seizures that occurred from watching pocket monsters because of how many things were flashing. And if you go and trace like I believe it's the Krugman study, or maybe I'm saying it wrong, but the guy who studied the flickering TV and how it affected brain waves, how it actually puts you into a sleep-like stasis, I guess.
it's all about the lights, you know.
Yeah, it's all about the lights flickering. Pokemon, back when it first came about, triggered seizures in children. And then if you look at Pokemon, when you distill the philosophy of
video games,
cockfighting, it's cockfighting, right? You go around collecting things and you battle these little creatures. And it was huge with the kids.
It's still huge. Now it's huge with everybody because it's all nostalgia. It's all nostalgia for us, for people like even older than us. And then for everybody under our our generation, I guess you'd say, it's not necessarily new to them because they grew up with it, but they just played the video games because they were fun, or the cards. But now they have this new game. It's crazy, dude. It's taken over.
Well,
and I didn't want to say the government thing because I really think that. I just wanted to point.
Well, I think you were just trying to probe Ether Hawkins' mind to see if I had some type of, deep-seated conspiracy theory
with this.
It's just on the surface. I think it's a nice approach. It's a logical approach business-wise for the Pokemon to go on the go and augment the reality, because in the original game, which they never changed really, they were still doing the top-down shit like 2 years ago, I believe. They just recently changed to like a 3D mode. But anyways, you were already just spending time on the go with your Game Boy and, traveling the fictional world of whatever the Poke world was, like Johto or what. I don't keep track of that nonsense. I don't store those trivial facts in my head.
Right.
But Reddit, people on Reddit were looking at the servers for Pokemon Go, and they were saying people at the Pentagon were playing Pokemon Go. And it makes sense. I'm sure the lower level, fresh out of college.
It's like probably the lowest and the highest levels, right?
I just don't think the highest levels are playing Pokemon Go.
You don't think
and if they are, that's
Pokemon?
A problem. I don't think the generals and the higher-ups at the Pentagon are playing Pokemon Go. Mm-hmm. They could be playing Go, though, the board game. But the lower-level kids, the ones who are, computer savvy and they're running the systems, but they're politically illiterate, probably. I'm just going to assume that. They're playing Pokemon Go at the Pentagon.
Yeah.
I don't know. You can't even have your phone out when you work at like a McDonald's, but people at the Pentagon are playing Pokemon Go.
McDonald's is run like a prison too.
Well, eventually they're just going to. You hear about that KFC? It's a prototype restaurant. It's fully automated.
No way.
Yeah, you can look this up. I read an article about prototype KFC.
It's all fried though, and like.
Yeah, so they can drop everything, and it's baked. All a kiosk, and you order your food, you slide your little car, or you.
Honestly, I can see how easy it would be to do. To be honest.
Yeah, it makes sense. All you have to do is have frozen chicken, drop chicken, right? Fried chicken, freeze chicken, fried chicken.
You don't want to cook it frozen though.
Well, you know what I mean. You don't really need a lot of human preparation.
Not necessarily. That's
So
crazy, though. That's crazy.
yeah.
My mind just blew up with ideas. That was weird.
Well, and I think I mentioned before when Wendy's employees were like, "We want $15 an hour," and Wendy's
Burger
is
King.
like, "All right, we're going to replace you with kiosks." Okay,
Right.
they shut up. Yeah, it's a lot of things are becoming automated. You know, when I was just going on and on about telepathy to
Yes.
our guest Sam, well, Mark Zuckerberg has been quoted now saying that in about 50 years, he wants Facebook users to be plugged into his quote unquote matrix and telepathically upload their emotions and ideas to the servers. So, you know, if it sounds like, oh, it's crazy, science fiction, you're getting your ideas from movies. No, telepathy is on the minds of many successful entrepreneurs.
Definitely.
And telepathy makes sense if you actually study frequency and if you study the photon and how everything is electric, vibrating, the human brain to the wire. But, you know, last night, I think I mentioned this before we went on air. I was watching a documentary, and you know how a lot of people are always, the Jews, they're greedy, and the Holocaust and all that stuff. But I was watching professional PhD historians go through the financial transactions of the Rothschilds banking family. And they were going all the way back to the Napoleonic Wars. And they were tracing how the Rothschilds basically manipulated the market because they finally figured out that they could fool the public into thinking which way a war was going to go. And they could bet against what they told the public and make loads of money, like $600 million back during the Napoleonic War era.
Right.
And then eventually they bought stock in American businesses, and the steel Mongols and the bankers and Standard Oil, they formed a financial or an economic cartel. And the Rothschilds bought stock and they owned shares in all of the companies that were a part of this cartel, which today we would break up because Standard Oil was a monopoly, right? And the people who laid the tracks and forged the steel and built all the hardware. And then you have the bankers and the oil guys who were, you know, getting the oil into the vehicles, and the bankers moving around the money and all the transportation that was emerging in America. The Rothschilds had their hands in all of those industries. And
they had so much money on both sides.
Well, and after World War I, historians and professors of economics, they were looking at Germany, and they said that domestically, Germany could not recover without exterior influence or exterior investments. If they had to domestically recover from all the hyperinflation, they would have to spend about 50 years because they had war reparations and stuff they had to pay back. And that was, you know, kind of against them. All the post-World War I agreements were written not in their favor. So the populace fell into the propaganda of homegrown nationalism, the Nazi Party.
Right.
And the bankers, who at that time were the very first international merchant class, before we had a globalized, post-World War I, we had a globalized network for finance experts. So they could invest anywhere. Like today, if you go and basically listen to any kind of G20 or G8 or whatever summit where all the top countries go and meet. They say we're already in a globalized system. I mean, a global economy emerged after World War I. We always think it's something to still be established or implemented. It's been here for almost a century.
Forever. For a long
And
time. For all we know.
and the people who capitalized on the global institutions and the central banking, they were all American businessmen and the Rothschilds.
Mm-hmm.
And what's crazy,
rubber was a big thing in World War I. The rubber plant.
Well, what's crazy is the House of Windsor, the England's royal family.
Mm-hmm.
They basically take orders from the financial center of the world, which still is in England, in London. And the Rothschilds are the biggest banking family ever to come out of that area. So they kind of direct the House of Windsor. So during this time period, they funded the Bolsheviks. And mind you that like Das Kapital and Karl Marx, he was inspired. He was a Hegelian youth. He admired Hegel's philosophies. And he was about a middle class, not a nobleman, but he was well off. He wasn't a proletariat as he defined the proletariat. So basically you have the upper class aristocracy writing a manual for class warfare. So when the Communist Manifesto arrived, it was a manual and a playbook for the proletariat. And the funny thing about communism is you would think that if you're going to use a playbook, you wouldn't want to let your enemy know what your playbook is.
Right.
They're following a playbook written for them that is actually designed to keep them down because it's an open playbook. So people know what they're going to do. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like two football teams going at it. And the one football team writes the playbook for the other football team. And the other football team uses all the plays in that book. Right. That's how stupid the proletariat revolution truly was. So the aristocracy and the royal family, the czars, right, in Russia, they were killed, taken out by the Bolsheviks. And so you have the British royal family, the House of Windsor, which actually, if you trace it back, they're German. And they're funded by the Rothschilds. And then you have the banking cartels funding the revolution to overthrow other royal families. So they take out Russia. So now you have a destabilized Soviet, not destabilized in the sense economically, because they were rebuilding around their socialist / communistic centralized economy. And basically Lenin came in and tried to reorganize. But politically, it was destabilized. So they were getting money from the West to fund their Soviet empire. Right. Meanwhile, you have this a charismatic failed artist who's handpicked, is friends with the members of the Thule Society and all these occult organizations, and he becomes a mouthpiece for the Nazi Party that goes on to be the precursor for the European Union. If you really think about it, that's what Hitler was trying to do by force, form an economic European Union. And once again, no royal family in Germany. So to really cut to the chase, the American financial robber barons, the robber barons of the West, started to hire pirates. And all of the political people or the political players in the early 20th century were basically pirates. They were there to loot and run the countries. That's why if you go and study Hitler, he had offshore accounts. He had loads and loads of money ready to take away from Germany if Germany fell, and he was going to leave Germany because he was a pirate. He was looting the economy of Germany and his benefit while trying to conquer other places, because the people who financed the Nazi party hired him to do that. And, you know, it gets really dark and deep because a lot of people wonder, you know, how many death camps did you have throughout Poland and all the way up to the Soviet border? German death camps where they were sending people to be exterminated. Well, if you really look into it, they used to take the gold fillings out. They used to basically steal all the assets of these poor people and then execute them. Where did all those gold fillings go to? They got smelted down, right? Turned into gold bars. Somebody has Nazi gold bars somewhere. Nobody ever talks about where those gold bars went, but I'd love to read into how many pounds of gold was actually stolen from the people who were exterminated in these death camps. Sure. And then if you trace the sale of Zyklon B, the gas used, right, that was manufactured over in America.
Yeah, what was it for again?
The Zyklon B?
Yeah.
The gas chambers.
Oh, that's right. It was, yeah. Wasn't it just like a heavy form of carbon monoxide?
Well, originally, the crude, before they had an efficient means of exterminating in the extermination camps, they were just pulling up their cars and using the muffler fuel, the muffler emissions, and funneling that into a hot box, basically.
This just in, multiple tornadoes
but then
reported injuries, widespread damage in Minnesota.
Really? Yeah, see, if we get cut off tonight, it's probably going to be because of tornadoes, not that Google doesn't want me talking about this. But yeah, people go out and research this. Some really, really heavy, well-documented financial transactions that you can trace all the way back. Like, for instance, Prescott Bush, the Bush family clan, you know, the Bonesmen. Mm-hmm. Prescott Bush was in the business of, what's the word? He was making money off of the Nazi war machine. He had investments in Germany, Prescott Bush did. And, you know, the SS soldiers had, the top-ranking SS soldiers had the skull and bones insignia right on their little hat. Yeah. So there's weird connections. And if you just look at Skull and Bones in itself, the Yale little private secret society, all of the members from I think Taft was a Bonesman, to the Bush clan, to different secretaries of the Treasury, all these things. Basically, after World War I, the very first international merchant class found out that they could fund both sides of any war and have a perpetual profit machine, and they could live off a war economy. That's why ever since World War I, we've had perpetual proxy wars and perpetual war. I just wanted to throw that out there. Like, I'm not one to really dive into, because everybody likes to go to the Rothschilds, right? They always like to go, the Rothschilds. And you know what's funny? You notice how people think that there's some type of Jewish conspiracy in banking. How perfect is it that the Jews were exterminated under the Nazi regime, under the orders of international financiers? They wanted to add insult to injury. Right. Post-Holocaust, people started to make rumors that the international banking cartels were predominantly Jewish. Well, that must be a total hoot, a total riot to the Rothschild family, because they funded the extermination of the Jews and the Gypsies. So that's just insult to injury. Right. But yeah, it's really disgusting to really think about that the reason, and even if you don't believe in the connections, the economic connections, Nazi Germany was exterminating people because they were making money off of it. They weren't just doing that because Hitler was so twisted and demented. In fact, Hitler knew that a lot of his war profits were coming from the rape and pillage of all those people that he deemed unworthy, profane, etc., the handicapped. That he was stealing their assets, stripping them of their humanity, and exterminating them, all for money.
Just getting rid of them.
And yes, later on we have the argument that when Hitler decided to reroute his resupply, because they were pushing in towards Moscow, right, after they broke their pact with Stalin, and then he ordered his trains to start going towards the death camps instead of resupplying on the Russian front. So that's one of his downfalls. But people always think that Hitler is the face of evil. The way international economics and just being an international pirate works is you fund the operation, you have a patsy, you have a scapegoat, and if anything falls, you still make your money and you can leave without being a part of the consequence or any of the trials or the justice.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know. It's crazy shit.
Some corrupt, edgy stuff you got there, Mr. Hawkins.
Well, and I could be more articulate if I had the material in my hand here. I'm just kind of going off some of my hazy memory from watching this. It was really overwhelming because I knew about most of the secret society stuff, but to really think that the main reason why the Nazis had death camps was to profit off of, basically death was making money. That was the whole purpose. The more people they killed, the more money they made, because of the people financing to get Germany out of their economic slump. They needed those crazy things to occur to make the money back that they invested in Germany. So they were stealing gold fillings, etc.
Well, everything in everybody's house.
And then I feel like after World War II, instead of being really physical, I mean, we still have proxy wars and everything, but I think they just became more savvy. It's more of a mind warfare instead of a physical war now when it comes to economic warfare.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at the housing crash. Look at 2008. They didn't have to invade anybody to make off like bandits. They just had to pull some numbers and racketeer and do some Jedi mind tricks, crash the market, get the American taxpayers to bail them out, all under a family that has ties to funding the Nazi regimes. I mean, the Bush clan. I mean, that all occurred. The bubble itself was propped up under the Clinton administration. Reagan let the bull run loose. He deregulated Wall Street. He let the bubble form over the Clinton administration. Mm-hmm. And people have to realize, like, the economy was good under the Clintons. The economy was bad under the Bushes. Well, that's just a paradigm control system. You have to realize these things play out over 20 years, 30 years. You won't feel the ripple effect of certain investments for a few years. So when Reagan deregulated the market, it allowed the bankers to go crazy with a bubble, a fraudulent bubble, to prop the economy up. And then it burst, right at the end. Meanwhile, we were going into unjust wars under the Bush administration. More war profiteering, more racketeering.
Right.
And then when it actually crashed, they gave us the Obama, which is a scholar and a gentleman compared to the Texan, Texas bandit, the oil baron, good old Bush. And it's perfect. The mind game. See, it's no more physical, we'll take everything by force. It's, we're just more intelligent than you, and we'll write the laws
as we see it fit.
Right. And it's just crazy to think that this documentary I was watching, and go check it out yourself. In fact, I might post like a little link if people want to watch it. It's really, really heavy though. It goes all the way back to like the Napoleonic Wars.
Right, and that's where that's where a lot of it all started.
And it makes sense if you think about the implementation of modern banking and modern economics. That's when it would start, right? Because and then the global market would emerge around World War I.
And then the war machine comes back.
And, you know, why do you think J.P. Morgan was so interested in Nikola Tesla? These guys love to utilize the latest technology to speed up profits. For instance, the Nazi war machine, they had the latest telecommunication systems coming out of the West. They purchased and implemented the latest radio telecommunication systems for their war effort. That was all designed. That technology came out of America.
Right.
But it was used by Nazi Germany. So that's what they love to do. They love to loot resources, ideas, and just make more money. And if death doesn't get in the way. In fact, the skull and bones look like dollar signs to them.
Right.
But you know, I'm gonna leave that topic and let it.
It's heavy. It's heavy, man.
And that's just if you think of an iceberg, that's not even the tip. That's a tiny piece of ice that I just kind of threw out there for folks. There's the cap and everything underneath the water that I didn't even discuss.
Right. Yeah. It's some heavy stuff.
But yeah, today I went foraging. Got some berries.
Cool.
Yeah, I got some berries around my house. You ever forage?
Sometimes. It's been a while. I haven't had time. I forage in the garden at the yacht club.
There you go. It's a good feeling, man. Like, I've noticed that our blackberries are coming back around my place. For a while, they kind of disappeared or shriveled up. I don't know what happened, honestly. And I've noticed they're coming out of these little brush patches from areas we've cleared. They must love the brush, though, because I think it acts as like a trellis system for their vines to poke through and climb. So, yeah, I found a lot of blackberries. My tomatoes, I swear, man, these tomatoes are growing like 4 inches every single day. It's so hard to keep up and rearrange all of their limbs so they're not crossing and stealing each other's sun and competing. I want them to all get a good amount of sun, you know, and keeping them in that little the rounded cage to make sure they grow appropriately without competing with each other. It's kind of hard when they're growing like 4 inches every single day.
It's awesome. Yeah, I just went to our buddy's garden, saw he's got like 5 different kinds of tomatoes, 3 different kinds of cucumbers. He's got peppers. It's great. It's fucking beautiful. I wish I had a garden.
No, that's awesome.
It requires time.
It does. It really does require time. But if you can do it and you have the time, it's the best, one of the best feelings ever to see something go from a seed to a tree to a real fruit.
I've done it in the sense.
Or a vegetable or whatever the hell you're growing.
Yeah, there you go. It was hydroponic strawberries.
See, I would love to do hydroponic hanging gardens.
Yep.
That would be so much fun.
Just do that. Tomatoes, real easy.
Oh, and there's
You
so
can
many
get one
new
for like $30 online. It's already
Really?
ready. Yeah. You still have to add water or something of that nature, but yeah, it's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Hey,
So, anything new in
no,
the other side of life for you? Any stories from the workplace, from the street?
not necessarily. Just another day today.
Another day in the life.
Yeah, it was kind of a shitty day, but we won't get into it.
I recently bought a compilation of albums from
Ooh.
the Bonzo Dog Doodah band.
Mm.
They're 60s psychedelic rock band, but they were more of a cheeky psychedelic rock band, tongue in cheek. They took on the whole Frank Zappa approach, where things were surreal and abstract and kind of self-aware. But then at the same time, they would go and like tour with other rock bands, and the other rock bands didn't know how to really approach their style, because the Bonzo Dog band would blatantly make fun of the other rock bands they were playing with, because they were a parody of what a rock artist is, right?
Right.
They were pointing out that, hey, at the end of the day, this is entertainment. Stop taking yourself so seriously.
Mm-hmm. That's
which
crazy.
is just hilarious. I encourage. In fact, the opening tune is from one of their albums.
Still didn't post that documentary in the chat.
Oh, I'll get around to it after the episode. I'll put it down in the description.
Fair enough.
And it's like 3 and some hours long. And folks, you got to be in the right mood to absorb it. It's just constant. It's heavy. And I had to stop and pause it because so many, they look like assumptions or allegations. But then when I went and did a little research into the claims, I was baffled. I was like, what? You're kidding me. The railroad and the oil guys, they were all in an economic cartel, and Smedley Butler during the Roosevelt years said that he was paid to take over the government from the fascist corporations and he offers names, dates, all of this, and you can go independently verify these claims, and it's well researched, and it blows my mind.
That's crazy.
And have you ever heard of the rumor about Henry Ford being a secret? He was pro-Nazi, pro-Hitler.
Yeah, supposedly. I don't know. I haven't researched it at all. The rain is starting, my friend.
Well, apparently, is it?
Yep, at my house.
Have you ever seen the rain coming down on a stormy day? No, I've seen the rain coming down on a stormy day. It's sunny day, you idiot.
It's a sunny day. So I just got the text. Yeah, the rain has started. Here at the Auditory Osmosis studio, we have about 20 minutes or so till it hits us, we'll say.
Well, yeah, and I guess they found vehicles because out of nowhere, when Hitler was building the Autobahn, they were like, where did he get this money to after the hyperinflation? How did he build up his arms and his vehicles, his transportation so quickly? Well, they have vehicles now from really early when Hitler started his blitzkrieg and England was still like, oh, that Hitler, he's just uniting Europe. They have vehicles from the early years, and some of those vehicles underneath the hood had Ford motors. Which is, once again, they were investments from other companies. And maybe some of it was unknowingly that they were funding a tyrant, because business is business, right? They were like, oh, you want a contract? All right, we'll fund you. But then if you really think about it, what people like to call the military-industrial complex, which I believe during his last address, what's his name, talked about it.
The
Eisenhower.
Okay. Yeah.
Eisenhower knew about this, and I believe he said whether sought or unsought by the military-industrial complex, more power he was talking about. We should be on the guard, because he knew that some of the people, the international businessmen that didn't see any type of borders. They were not nationalists. They were not patriots. They were about business. He knew that they would put money over the country, right? And if you think about it, the military-industrial complex, they cherry-picked top Nazi scientists in Operation Paperclip after the Nazi regime fell, brought them over to America to perpetuate the war economy, right? All of the rocketing, the rocket science by von Braun, all of that built NASA. Do people even realize that? Do people know that von Braun built NASA, basically?
Right.
He funded and started space exploration for the great country of America. And, you know, it's just shit like that. You really got to wonder if
we got how many German scientists did we get? Was it like 24 or was it more than that or less?
You know, I'd have to double check the document. It was classified for years and now it's declassified. You can go read it. It's just Operation
Paperclip. Yeah. Weren't you saying that's where Lyme disease may or may not have come from?
Well, here's the thing. They took a biological weapons expert from the Nazi field of research, and he was working on mosquito and tick-borne illnesses that he wanted to weaponize and then invade countries as a soft tactic to weaken their populations. And he was given full right to run a little island. I think it's called Plum Island, and it's outside of Lyme, Connecticut, I believe. You'll have to, like, if you want to double check this as I'm talking, I mean, you don't have to. I'm just going off the top of my head. Lyme's disease, the first documented case came out of Lyme, Connecticut, or Lyme's, Connecticut. And that was close to Plum Island, where this Nazi bioweapons expert was working with ticks and other agents to develop biological weapons. And still today, we have biological research going on over on that island. It's one of many sites where we mess with live viruses,
right? And
we manipulate and mutate to create biological weapons for biological warfare. But yeah, Lyme's disease, it's the big rumor, and we'll never know for sure. Just like we won't know for a few more years and maybe ever if the military-industrial complex shot Kennedy, because he was going to do a lot of things, but one, he was going to disclose the existence of a shadow government that was being ran by the Wall Street crony capitalists. And, you know, he was going to take out the Federal Reserve and all this other stuff that he was rumored to do. And then you have his, in a free and open society, the very words secrecy is repugnant. You know, that whole spiel. He had that whole thing, just like Eisenhower was like, the military-industrial complex has too much power. So you have these two presidents talking about this stuff. But, you know, Kennedy, he was a ladies' man. He had a lot of different ties to the intelligentsia and the elite, the aristocracy of America. He was well off. I believe that the Kennedys, Jack Kennedy is quoted saying that he didn't even know the Great Depression happened because his family was so well off when he was growing up. He learned about it at Harvard or whatever school he went to. I think he went to Harvard. Double check that. Yeah, he learned about the Great Depression in school because he didn't even feel it. So he was a part of the aristocracy. And I think when he really started to get to the playing field where the majority of people, the level of consciousness, the day-to-day routines that the majority of people engage in or experience, he started to feel what they felt, and he wanted to become a popular leader, a true populist, right?
Yeah.
And when he started to make moves towards that, they killed him. They killed his brother. You know, they killed Lee Harvey Oswald. We mentioned that, you know, how he was shot on live TV after they showed us the president was shot
by Jack
Ruby
Ruby.
shot.
Yeah.
And, you know, apparently people still say that Reagan, the very first assassination attempt, the reason why it was a warning. And they say that George Herbert Walker Bush, who for years was in like the CIA and stuff, he was the one who directed that assassination to warn Reagan, hey, don't overstep.
Oh, really?
The powers that be. Yeah, look into the history of how powerful the Bush clan really is.
Oh, it's crazy.
So, you know, Nathan Rothschild, I believe that's the guy who said, I care not what puppet runs the government. I only want control over the money supply. I'm paraphrasing, but he said that about the royal family. He doesn't care what royal family is there for the people to wave and gawk at. He wants control of the real motivator, the real mover and shaker of the world, the money.
Right.
Because money never stops moving and never stops flowing, purchasing power, etc. But yeah, it's crazy if you really follow the history of finance and its correspondence to the government and how the government works and how it funds its military expansionist programs. These contracts are usually from private enterprises, and the private enterprises have shareholders. And if you look at the majority of the major enterprises early on in the international economy emerged, the Rothschilds were shareholders in most of the big industries.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we go down the road today and we're in a different ball game, but it's crazy to think about how much money they made and how much money they have today that we don't record because
for sure
it's all from back then, right? So it's stored away and it's real assets. To think about the castles they own, the manors, the gold, how much gold they may have.
Right. Did you see? I saw an article the other day that said, and I don't know if it was just clickbait. Again, I was gonna see if maybe you knew anything else about it, but it said the vaults of like Tower, one of the, or maybe both of the main World Trade Centers were emptied, before the bombing or before they collapsed.
Right. Well, you know, Building 7 is the main red flag. I mean, they pulled Building 7
for sure.
And I don't like talking about 9/11 because I feel that history will eventually just say, give us the facts. I mean, we still have the 28 pages that are classified, and those are about to hit the public domain if everything goes right. But I'm still looking forward to when they declassify. I believe it's 2020, unless they move the date. They're going to release the Kennedy documents. Oh, and one more little tidbit about the Kennedy assassination. The guy, because Kennedy found out about all the false flag operations and all the bullshit the CIA wanted him to pull in terms of provoking Castro to engage in a war with America.
Yeah.
Like the Bay of Pigs.
Yeah, I remember.
He fired the head of the CIA over recommendations to commit acts of terrorism, basically, against the Cuban people to instigate a war for the benefit of America.
Right.
And American beneficiaries. That man that he fired later went on to be a part of the commission for the investigation of the Kennedy assassination. So you had bad blood between a guy he fired, and he then was a part of the commission to tell us about the assassination of the man that he may have had bad blood with. So it just goes, like I say, there's so many rabbit holes, and some of these rabbit holes go so deep that you can't get back out. because we only have a few of the puzzle pieces. We can't even see the whole picture. So it's up to the listener if they really want to dive into something like that.
Go for it. Jump in.
Yeah, it's a good talk.
All these conspiracy theories make me hungry.
Well, and we were talking about all the divide and conquer shit today when television came around. I mean, why do you think Goebbels was the Catholic Church was the actual definer of propaganda? If you go and trace the word propaganda and you trace the history of it all the way back, you'll hit the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church created the word propaganda for imperialistic intention. Well, later on, Goebbels perfected the art of propaganda. And what did he perfect it through? Movies and radio. Radio was the key mobilizer in World War II. It was the key medium for sending propaganda out to the masses. So the people who finance wars discovered during the birth of television that they could program realities for everybody. And that ties in nicely to what we were talking about when people have to stop being so reactive to everything they see on the television because it's not the whole story. So, they knew about that. They knew about the potential of using the television medium to program realities for everyone. And it's still going on today. Advertising is the legal form of propaganda, the normalized form of propaganda. We expect to be probed by advertisers who want to get into our mind, deconstruct it and reconstruct it, just
you
so
mean
we
like
can
Pokemon,
buy a product.
Like Pokemon Go?
Well, Pokemon Go is to get the product into the hands. That's the advertising. But once you get the product in the hand, that's a whole different story. Whatever that product does.
You just cut it out real bad.
I cut out?
Yeah.
Okay, well.
Right after I said Pokemon Go.
Well, advertising is designed to get the product into the hands. But what if the product itself is a whole different story? Am I cutting out? Hello?
What's going on?
Are you there?
Yes.
Weird. I don't know if I'm just repeating myself over and over. If we'll be able to hear this in the playback, or if you and your connection, something is.
I think we're both a little screwed by this weather right now.
Well, I guess we can wind it down here in like 10 minutes because I have to check on my tomato plants. But I just wanted to say for a little quick wrap up here. Advertising is the process of getting the product into the consumer's hand.
Correct.
The advertisement can be a different psychological ploy, but the product itself can be a whole different ballgame. Like, for instance, okay, you target someone to get Pokemon Go into their hands. But once they have the product, they have Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go can change and engage the human sensibilities in a whole different way than the advertising.
Yeah.
Industry.
And the product you can buy more product right there too.
Right. So Pokemon Go could be potentially weaponized to kind of program the human sensibilities in a subtle way, where advertising is just the weaponized information to get you to get the product that is weaponized too. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you could have both playing on two levels. But then again, commodities, we need water, we need all that shit. So water itself, I mean, I suppose it can be weaponized. You just spike it with fluoride. But beyond that, advertising came in to weaponize things that normally didn't have innate weaponization built in.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
It works you over on two levels.
Yeah. It's crazy. All I hear is rain right now. It's fucking awesome.
But yeah, you're making me worried here because I'd have to leave the studio and check on my tomatoes because I'm not losing. Last season, we had terrible hail and it shredded our tomato plants.
It's a bummer, dude. You
Right.
should have those things on rollers.
Well, and we lost, because the flowers were out. We lost, like, I'd say 70% of the flowers.
Damn. I don't think it's hail yet. I think it's just nice rain. But it is a preemptive, sound.
But yeah, if people want to learn more about advertising and what it does to the human senses, just read The Mechanical Bride by Marshall McLuhan, a book written in the 50s deconstructing how malicious advertising can be.
Yeah, I haven't read it. I haven't read the whole thing, but I've actually looked through it. It's
The Mechanical Bride.
Yep.
And then he did a follow-up for corporate culture, and he called the book, and this is all you need to know, Culture as Business. Or
what was that one more time?
Business as culture, or culture as business.
Okay.
He was saying that our culture is now a business. It's monetized.
Mm-hmm.
Our culture is not real. It's not intrinsic. It's not organic. It's manufactured because of business.
Right.
So that was his follow-up to The Mechanical Bride. People should go and check it out.
Check it out. Well, John Jones. We'll talk about him real quick. Popped for estrogen blockers.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
That's right. You were saying that.
Yeah. So apparently, I didn't know this, but you can actually, in healthy males, estrogen blockers can raise testosterone. Okay, but then also estrogen blockers are also for post cycles, after a cycle of steroids. A cycle is the amount of time they tell you to take this, whatever.
Right.
And so when you get these estrogen blockers after a cycle, it doesn't spike anything. It doesn't spike apparently it doesn't spike your testosterone or your estrogen. So nothing necessarily changes. So it doesn't pop. You don't apparently pop for the drug test. I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's one of the breakdowns I got from somebody.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So now when you get, is he out for X amount of events?
I don't know. I don't know what they're doing yet.
Is he permanently out? How does that work?
I don't know. Depending on
any past cases you can reflect on.
There's been people that have popped for steroids and performance enhancing drugs, but technically it's not performance enhancing. So
were they barred from entering any more competition?
Definitely they were gone for I think some were up to 3 years.
Wow.
I believe. So yeah. So anyway, let's wind. I'm gonna have to exit the studio this evening.
A short episode of crazy conspiracy talk.
Just chit chatting on the crazy level tonight,
Well, and I always feel when I'm not really allowed to articulate, and I can't pull documents. If I had a better situation here in the studio, I would have a well-prepared, organized, coherent thought process. But I'm just pulling from the air of everything that I'm trying to gather here that I've read about. And as it comes out, it just sounds incoherent. But the baseline that I want listeners to come away with is go research some of these claims and try to follow the money. Follow the money, I suppose, and research some of the claims made because it's so crazy. And it's so hard to confront people with the uncomfortable,
Yeah, very much so. But again, you have to go out there and find shit for yourself sometimes.
Right.
Well, a lot of the times, but most don't want to do it. So start tonight, maybe. Start looking into some shit.
Exactly. None dare call it a conspiracy.
Mr. Hawkins? Mr. Hawkins? Can you
Yes.
hear me? I'm headed out.
All right, sounds good. I'll post that little doc and
Don't forget to put that in the description. Everybody else, give us a like, give us a subscribe, and we'll hear from y'all soon, and you'll hear from us soon.
and this is the end of the least viewed episode in the history of Auditory Osmosis.